Have you ever had friends hype up a game, then played it, and slowly just realizing that just isn't, very good? That was the lovely realization, and then I finally set out to play Final Fantasy VIII. I know I'm late to the party, fuck off. I will state that this has nothing to do with the age of the game, having played the universally ass-kissed 7th installment and the furry version Man-Funk Showdown, both games I thoroughly enjoyed. And while Final Fantasy VIII's original character graphics can be questionable, I was playing the remastered version, which looks really nice and crisp. Besides this, I have never in my life experienced a game I felt to directly hate and disdain me for simply trying to enjoy it. Many may think I'm about to tear into the junction system here, but this is in fact one of the few redeeming core mechanics I find in this torrent of questionable game design. It's a complex system, and while relatively poorly explained, it does provide a level of customization without handholding rarely seen in newer or older titles. Good job, kinda. That being said, everything around this is a pile of male bovine fecal matter, where every gameplay mechanic was apparently programmed on opposite day. Point number 1. The menus could only have been more unintuitively and poorly laid out had they been programmed in Microsoft Paint. Layers upon layers of menus making an already complex system infuriating to work with, making me lustfully look at that auto-assign button so I may just continue with my life. These terrible menus carry over into the combat of the game, which is the most thoroughly unenjoyable train wreck I have seen in any Final Fantasy... worse since Final Fantasy 15. Well, Final Fantasy. Actually, forget I said anything. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to mark your target with a small white point and whatever you're not targeting with a big ass red label saying target, making the actual screen completely useless, leaving you to sift through terrible menus once again. But this doesn't even scrape the surface of the gameplay issues present here. Actually, on the surface everything looks fine, but under the skin the most terrible design decisions are hiding. We have our good old attack, magic, and with A and Ga, use item and run for your fucking life buttons, but with the junction systems this comes with a teeny tiny button built from general idiocy and horse spunk. The draw command. Seriously, screw this button. Everything related to it and everyone who ever thought it was a good idea. This used to steal spells from enemies, making it less of a spell system and more of a system based around consumables. And as any true gamer knows, always save every single consumable, until we are logging around the world's main share of potions and magic scrolls. We might need them later. Furthermore, due to the junction system, these consumables are directly tied to your stats, giving even more incitement to keep those fires and cures in your pockets. This wouldn't be too bad if the process of obtaining more spells was the most drawn kill me out process, taking ages to refill your stocks. I was playing the remaster with the option of 3x speed, and it was still the most tedious gameplay I've ever experienced since sitting through the loading screens in Sonic 06. I feel deeply sorry for the people that were playing without this feature, and with the amount of time wasted to this mechanic, I'm sure that if people defend it, it's most likely due to some sort of masochistic Stockholm syndrome. After forcing myself to terms with this system, we encountered the next galaxy brain decision from the developers. You want as little experience as possible. Apparently leveling up forces scaling of enemies, but as an added dogshit cherry on top of this semen-based sundae, enemies scale faster than you, making you rely on, you guessed it, drawing spells from your enemies. This completely removes the core RPG feeling of fighting enemies and getting stronger, and instead in order to deal with the enemies we either run away or welcome a game of Pokemon for shitbrains. Weakening the enemies, having one character use the card command, win, and obtain an item to use in a card game side quest. This is the intended approach to combat. The game even hints at this by making bosses yield absolutely no experience so that you can keep your party at a low level. The card game I guess is alright. Core mechanics are good, playing a game requires some thought process while being relatively approachable with changing rules across the world. The likelihood of you winning is however tied to your 5 best cards, giving the feeling of playing Pokemon against a rich cunt in elementary school. It's alright, but certainly no Archmage. This whole leveling confuzzlement encourages you to shy away from combat as much as possible. At least it's not like there's an obnoxious rate of random encounter. So in the peninsula, okay, I get it. I lasted about 12 hours, and the story seemed extremely... I know 12 hours is basically just a sample of a Final Fantasy game, but at least some sort of interesting coherent plot should have started showing. This is combined with a bunch of rather uninteresting or downright unlikable characters. I know Final Fantasy protagonists are usually a thoroughly obnoxious fat reminiscent of a mutated K-pop singer with a mullet, but here the only person showing some hint of an actual character is the girl from now on known as Oh Shit and her dog, Anal. Sorry. My chat isn't very mature. The rest of the gang are just mercenaries, with no other goal so far than following orders and being, well, mercenaries. There is some intrigue showing with some sort of parallel storyline with some soldiers who actually seem like properly written characters with dreams and inner struggles, but these brief respites of engaging narrative is not enough to keep me going. Especially since the story progression seems to often be centered around locking me in a room until I've successfully bumped into everything and talked to everyone. A gameplay loop reminding me of a dreadful social gathering at work. All in all, it is rare I find a game where I cannot pinpoint at least a bundle of redeeming factors, and this seems like a game which can only be highly regarded with nostalgia goggles as thick as a bowl of oatmeal. It is less of an engaging game than a loose collection of misguided attempts at innovative game mechanics. I guess I can appreciate the developers actually trying to think outside the box, something rarely seen today. Too bad the box was placed in the flooded basement of a crack house.